Mark, we just launched the new 2025 state of B2B Omnichannel best practices. Tell me about what it went into this report and what did you focus on?
This is one of my favorite ones to do. And frankly, it's one of my favorite ones to research and my favorite one to talk about it. And here's the reason. If you look at all the problems, obstacles, challenges, opportunities that are in front of a B2B seller of any type, whether that's a B2B retailer, whether that's a manufacturer or a distribution company, it all still comes down to this, which is the buyer out there. They've been very clear for the last 3 or 4 years. They want a better user experience, and not just on the e-com site and then just not on the app either. Everything has been on fast forward. Now that of course is not news to anybody out there in B2B land. Having said that, the biggest single takeaways that we looked into for this year's report is the fact that the ground is shifting even faster on the omnichannel use. That's going to be driven by two things. The B2B buyers are unrelenting now in what they want and how fast they want it. But what's
And what do they
changing
want?
and what they want is a diversified approach to shopping any channel they want. So yeah, so last year, it was the B2B sellers trying to figure out how to do this across 3, 5, 11 channels. This year, the state of how fast AI is coming into play in B2B and how fast this agentic commerce slash agent movement is changing the very work of what sellers have to do to keep up in something that is not just months away, you're talking weeks away. That's how fast these expectations for an omnichannel experience founded and grounded in increasing uses of AI. That's the big game changer for this year. Now,
Let me
that's
put a
not
pin in
anything.
that for a second, Mark. When
Yeah.
you mentioned the agentic movement, tell me what characterizes that and what you've seen.
What that means is that basically a B2B seller has looked upon, where their traffic, where their sales, where their conversion points have been across some standard channels that have been e-commerce grounded for quite some time. So there's a degree of familiarity in what those sales look like. Now, given the complexity of a B2B sale, there's a lot more metrics and touch points that kind of go into that B2B buying experience. B2B sellers have been wrestling with trying to bring together something omni-channel for a great many years. And they got the memo that, these millennial buyers out there and these teams of buyers across the organization, they want it better, cheaper, faster across any channel they want on their terms. That's the bottom line. But what changed is the entire role of how B2B buying and selling is changing to a more agentic agent model, if you will. So that is a little bit more complicated in B2B than it is in online retail, only because of the complexities, the buying cycle, the purchasing frequency, if you will, the metrics that have to be accounted for, let alone, the value adds the B2B buyers want, which could range from SKU count, product specific, tech specs, changing from, one buying channel via e-commerce to EDI, e-commerce to punch up, somewhere in between. All of that is shifting to becoming AI enabled, becoming agent enabled. So what's happening is the B2B buyers are kind of figuring out how to try and take advantage of this emerging agent world, to shop for their organization or buy for their organization more quickly and frequently with all the metrics that's now expedited an agent kind of working on their behalf. So
Well, what kinds of decisions do you see the manufacturers, distributors, and other B2B sellers? What decisions do you see them making in order to try to meet these demands and preferences from the people buying from them?
well, you're seeing it kind of pop up most in traditional industrial supplies,
Yeah.
MRO kinds of purchases, maintenance repair operations. That's the closest thing to kind of a retail transaction you've always had in B2B e-commerce. But the real starting point for a lot of organizations is basically, how do I how do I take this new omni-channel buying experience that's now coming in via an agent, and how do I figure out how that's going to impact my sales, marketing, e-commerce organization? That's a big one. So sales enablement is a big one because now an agent comes in with a specific request and it takes a lot of automation out of still manual process for a lot of B2B sellers. But what's changing is the companies on the B2B side, like a Partstown or a Granger or, some names like that, they're getting this thing right, is that they're figuring out how to push this out to the contractor in the field, which is a different path, or they're figuring out how to make their sales agents become counselors and partners in strategic buying versus just order takers. Now that equation has been around B2B for 20 plus years, but see how AI is kind of changing all this? So there's a lot of moving parts here, but basically what's happening is the omni-channel buying experience is being expedited in new and different ways, both good and bad, for B2B buyers and sellers, in how fast a B2B buyer can use an omni-channel purchasing experience to get what they want when an agent comes calling and not just a human. So that's a lot to unravel. But there's also still some issues here that have always been the same.
And
Still
what are
the
those?
same. For instance, data. All of this AI agentic commerce, which you and I cover pretty regularly now, it's all tied to clean data, our rich product catalog. That's the kind of stuff that has to be kind of brought into the starting point for this. Yet, many a legacy B2B distribution company or manufacturing company, they're not going to get the space race until they get to the launch pad, which is they've got to still clean up the data. So yeah, there's a lot of organizational angst on a lot of traditional distribution, manufacturing, B2B seller teams, because they're trying to figure out, is our data ready enough? Because we sure see what that buyer wants out there. And we see this agent traffic kind of changing our metrics now and how we go about things. So it's a two-edged sword. Is there an opportunity there? Yes, there is. If you don't embrace the challenges of having your, internal house in order, ready for this new agentic omni-channel experience to come, you're not going to be ready in time. And, I heard some Forrester stats just the other day that kind of, that I'll have to go back and find them, Brian. My point
Yeah.
to you though is, with this new kind of AI agentic world, it's reducing the steps even further across the purchasing experience. Instead of like, what do you want? How do you want it? What do you want it? The agent comes with a nice package that says, do you have it or not? And so that's how fast this is changing the omnichannel experience. And probably that's the biggest takeaway I think we've noticed this year, and what we tried to cover in the report and kind of explain it to the readership out there.
That's great. What other, maybe I could just ask one last question to leave on this note. What are there early results that these adopters are seeing in making these big technology leaps right now?
Well, I mean, we had, we just did a story, thanks to you, on a company called Boat Trader. And these guys go back 20 plus years with the old want ads for yachts. And they began life as just kind of a print thing, if you will, And, they had quite a little AI journey themselves, and they just launched, this series of upgrades covering just the topics we're talking about. And, we were just talking to their CTO. They saw a nice 5% boost in conversion and site traffic just because of what this new thing's doing for them. So my point is, instead of waiting to kind of see what the results are down the line, these changes were developed in weeks, not months. And when they got them in place, they saw changes to conversion, sales, and traffic in days and hours, not weeks and months. So that is, and if you look at
Pretty
our Boat
significant.
Trader story on the website, you can read all about it. But yeah, I mean, basically, natural language, natural search enhanced by AI enhanced video search where you can like basically put in the kind of size and yacht you want. They did that from a hackathon internally and spent 6 to 8 to 9 weeks doing that to get the results they're looking at. So that's just one concrete example that we just wrote about last week.
Great. Well, I hope everybody will, who's watching right now will tune in to the website, go there, download the new report, and take a look at the 2025 edition of the B2B Omnichannel best practices.
We covered a lot of ground here, but I think the report does a nice job of kind of unpacking all this for those who really need to know about, how this is changing the omnichannel buying experience for B2B.
Sure. All right. Well, thanks for your time, Mark. Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Always a
Brian.
pleasure.